Now, I noticed that in part of the description that you provided for yourself, like online on your online social
Mhm.
media, is that you said that you are a DV survivor. Now, would you attribute this training and being able to dedicate yourself to this lifestyle as a way that you overcame the pain and the hurt from that time period? So, and
Yeah,
if so,
so
how did you master that?
yeah, so with me, I actually took a lot of different steps when I first
Hmm.
started going through my domestic violence. As you know, most people, you are in love with the person usually who's hurting you, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So my first thoughts was never to hurt him back or,
Hmm.
to do anything like that. So when it first started, it was sort of just, hey, figure out a way to distance myself, get me and my kids away, give him
Hmm.
whatever time he needs to get himself together, whatever, and go from there. But he started to stalk me really bad. And
Hmm.
then from there, he was breaking him house. He almost rolled me off the street, off the road before.
Hmm.
Um, it was obvious that he didn't care about the life of me or my children.
Hmm.
So it got to a point that it was scary, and then as a woman, I went and I got the restraining order and I went to the police district and I did all the stuff you're supposed to do. Um, but I also realized that when I was calling the police, by the time they got there, he was gone and the damage was already done.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes he would break my phone or throw my phone. I couldn't even call the police.
Hmm.
And then if you were in that era of people minding their business, people wasn't
Yeah.
calling the police for you.
Yeah, that's a
They were
fact.
like,
That's a fact. I remember. Yeah.
right, I don't want no part of
That
that.
ain't got nothing to do with me.
So
Exactly. Yeah. That's a
right,
sad that's a sad like there's a saying that men need to get back to checking men for not being men. Like
mm,
that you know what I'm saying, that's definitely one of those situations because I remember too, um no, I don't remember. I heard of back in the day
mm,
that men used to come to the rescue of women being mistreated or being abused, you know, what I
right,
mean, in public situations or in earshot of anybody else. And then as time evolved or whatever, during the
it
times we were
changed.
growing up, people kind of just, that's none of my business. And
Yeah,
we kind of need to get back to some of the things that our parents and grandparents had going on
you
because that was
right.
actually the right way to do things. So. I agree that that was foul, and you can continue. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But just to speak on that too, you do find people too that you have so many toxic relationships
Hmm.
that you have. I remember before I actually intervened in a domestic violence situation that was happening outside, right? And
Hmm.
this guy, right? Not to get off subject, but the guy, he knocked the girl's tooth out. It was so bad. Like
Hmm.
I literally see him knock her tooth out, and I intervened, and I'm like, hey, stop hitting her, whatever. He ran off, like screw this or whatever. And then she was upset with me. She was like, what did you do? You made him leave. You know what I mean? Like some
Hmm.
people are so toxic in their own relationships that they don't even see how bad it is. And then when you try to help them, they look like you're really, making it worse.
Absolutely.
So I get it to a certain extent, but at the same note, a person like me who wanted to help, I couldn't get it because the people like them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
From a
I
law
see it both
enforcement,
ways.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, but
Mhm.
from a law enforcement side of point of view, like what you talking about, I have seen that also where,
Right.
you go there, you arrest a guy, you take him to jail. He's waiting to get, he's waiting to be seen by like the magistrate or whatever,
Hmm.
and she is typically she, but men are not above
Hmm.
being abused either, but it's typically she. She would run down to the state attorney, district attorney, the prosecutor's office, and
Drop the
try to
charges.
drop the charges. Yeah, like exactly. So it's exactly what you said happened to you, but it's the legal side of it
Yeah.
on our side. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So yeah, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah, and I hated that because, like I said, I was one of the people that I actually wanted to help, and
hmm,
I wasn't big on asking for it. Sometimes you could feel a little embarrassed about what you're
for
going
sure.
through. And as a victim, you go through that, it's my fault, and
Hmm.
all that type of stuff. But when it was available, I'm like, okay, well, if this is available to me, let me use it.
Hmm.
And even I felt like sometimes with the police, like they would come and they'll be like, okay, so where he at? And I'm like, I don't know. And then in their mind, I knew, I just didn't want to tell them,
You're hiding them. Yeah, no
um,
doubt.
because the stuff that they seen. But for real, I'm like, I really don't know, like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. True
so
indeed.
yeah. After I went through getting the restraining orders and doing everything I was supposed to do, I started realizing the lack in time and realizing that, by the time the police get there,
Hmm.
I could be dead. So I was like, I gotta find a way to sort of be able to protect myself. So I realized, like I said, that by the time they would get there, he was already there. He already did the damage. He done
Hmm.
broke my door down, got in the house. I'm like, if this man really wanted to kill me, he could have killed me by now.
Hmm.
Um, so I just decided I wanted to find a way to, be able to defend myself. So I started looking at alternatives like pepper spray and little stuff like that. Like maybe this work. But then I started thinking about it like this is gonna piss him off,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's gonna be worse on me. So then I even was like, okay, maybe I could try some hand to hand. But hand to hand is so close and so personal.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, it's almost like I have to let him grab me and put his
Hmm.
hands on me before I can even try to defend myself. So I'm like, oh, that ain't really good either. So then someone had mentioned to me, they was like, well, did you ever think about firearms? And I'm like, well, firearms is, it's so far. Like I
Hmm.
felt like at that time, like going to learn firearms meant like I wanted to shoot him.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I don't know. Like I'll think about it. I was just like, okay, one day I was just online and I was looking at some stuff and I was like, like I see a lot of people, a lot of women especially, talking about how a firearm could be too much.
Hmm.
But then I also looked into different people at the time, like KD from No Other Choice. He
Okay.
was talking about the history of Black history and stuff like that. And it
Hmm.
wasn't just firearm information. It was just, just trying to do things different in the world from how we were raised to do it. So
Hmm.
it sort of opened my mind to be like, hey, like, just because these women are saying this, maybe I'm different.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it made me look and I'm like, okay, I want to get into that. Happen to be, I go to work, and remember, I told you I'm doing nursing.
Hmm.
I go to work, and one of the guys who does housekeeping um happens to mention something about going to the range, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, you shoot, like that. He was like, yeah. I just like literally cut into his conversation. I'm like, you shoot? He's like, yeah, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, wow, like crazy. And I'm like, no, like I was thinking about it or whatever. And I sort of explained, what I went through and
Hmm.
why I wanted to do it. And then he was like, listen, like, let's do it. So he was like, we'll go to the range and we'll see how you do and sort of go
Hmm.
from there. So the first time I went, I was supposed to go shoot with him, and I told you I had so much trauma that it took
Yeah,
me a
yeah.
while to be able to just adjust to the sound.
Hmm.
And then once I got there, we went through safety, went through fundamentals. Before you know it, I was shooting. I was like, oh, I really like this. Like I
Oh, yeah,
do.
yeah, for sure.
So
That's what's up.
the second I shot, I was like, oh, like it just, for one thing, it's so empowering. And
Mm.
a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people don't realize that, right? Because you got the people who get overpowered, where
Hmm.
they sort of
Yep,
get
yep.
yeah, like I got a gun, ain't nobody gonna mess with
Yep.
me.
Yep.
You get them
The
people.
immature
But
irresponsibles. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
right. But for me, it wasn't that. It was empowering. Like I'm taking my own safety and my own life into my own hands.
Hmm.
And it was just so empowering. Like I don't need somebody to save me. If it really came to it, because like I said, you never want that to happen. But if it came to it, I could save myself.
Most definitely.
And it was everything for me. And then from there, I started going to the range by myself all the time. I got a membership.
Hmm.
And then ladies just start asking me like, "Oh, how you learn to shoot like that?" And I'm like, "Well, I went to this one class, and then from
Hmm.
there I just took it off myself." And they're like, "Can you teach me?" And I was before I knew it, I was teaching people at the range, and I'm just like, I need to like be an instructor before I sit
For
there and I'm
sure.
teaching
Yeah,
people.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so from there I went and I took all the necessary steps, and before I knew it, I was working with NRA, USCCA, and I was doing my thing. So
That's